Welcome in, everyone. We are jumping straight into something incredibly compelling today.
Yeah, we really are. It's a fascinating one.
For this deep dive, our mission is to examine a piece of 1980s pop culture that most people, they just take it completely at face value.
Right, they just hear a catchy tune.
Exactly. But it actually houses this massive, profound contradiction about its own meaning.
A really massive one.
So today we are looking at the 1984 Bananarama single, Robert De Niro's Waiting.
Classic track.
It is. But the goal today isn't just to revisit some nostalgic synth pop song.
Yeah.
We're exploring a disagreement so deep that even the people who sat in the exact same room and wrote the song together,
Literally the same room.
yeah, they cannot agree on what it is actually about.
It's a perfect case study, really, in how we consume art and how creators process their own legacy.
Absolutely.
You have this vibrant, highly stylized artifact of 80s pop, and underneath it is this tangled web of memory, conflicting realities, and just a collaborative mystery.
So we're going to break down the environment this track was born into, right? The visual culture that surrounded its release, and ultimately that deeply jarring contradiction regarding its lyrics that emerged decades later.
Decades. It took so long for this to come out.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the scale of the disconnect we're going to talk about, you first have to understand the sheer footprint of the song itself.
Right. You need the context of how big this was.
Exactly. So it was released on February 20th, 1984. It served as the second single from Bananarama's self-titled second studio album.
And the writing credits are really important here.
Right, the credits go to the three core members. So that's Sarah Dallin, Siobhan Fahey, and Karen Woodward.
Along with their producers, Steve Jolly and Tony Swain.
And sonically, I mean, this is just quintessential new wave and synth pop.
Oh, absolutely. It's the kind of production that completely defines the era.
Yeah, which is why Billboard would later rank it at number 74 on their list of the 100 greatest girl group songs of all time.
And they described it perfectly, I think. They called it breezy of the moment synth pop.
Breezy is the exact right word for how it sounds. And it wasn't some fringe release either. It was a major cultural moment.
Especially in Europe.
Right. It peaked at number 3 on the UK singles chart. It hit the top 10 in Ireland, Luxembourg, Switzerland, West Germany, and even South Africa.
Which is what makes its performance in the U.S. such an interesting little footnote.
Oh, totally. It barely made a blip over here.
Right. It only peaked at number 95 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, just briefly.
It really highlights that divide we often see in the 80s, right? Between European synth pop dominance and, well, what American radio was actually willing to champion at the time.
Yeah, there was definitely a transatlantic disconnect.
But where this release really cemented its legacy and where the band's marketing genius really shines is in the physical media strategy.
The physical releases for this song are legendary for collectors.
Oh, I love the physical media from this era. London Records essentially turned this single into a modular collector's set.
They did. They capitalized brilliantly on the tactile nature of 80s music consumption.
Like, certain copies of the UK 7-inch single included cutout postcards of either Fahey, Woodward, or Dallin.
You had to buy multiple copies if you wanted all of them.
Exactly. And then you had 3 separate picture disc releases, each one spotlighting a different member.
But the 12-inch extended versions, that's where you see the real blueprint for modern pop group marketing.
Yes. The label pressed the UK 12-inch on 3 distinct vinyl colors, and they assigned a specific color to each member's persona.
Right, so Karen Woodward was pressed on pink vinyl.
Siobhan Fahey was on green.
And Sarah Dallin was on blue. And they each featured a large picture label.
It is such a striking visual strategy. I mean, long before the Spice Girls were handing out highly specific individual personas to their fans, Bananarama was effectively doing the exact same thing through colored wax.
Yeah, you weren't just buying the single.
No, you were signaling which member of the group you aligned with.
Yeah.
It was gamified fandom.
And beyond the marketing, the physical records themselves contained these great little eccentricities.
Oh, like the B-sides.
Exactly. The B-side across the formats was a track called Push. But on the 12-inch, instead of an expected extended remix of Push, the track is preceded by a completely unlisted, alternate version of a brief interlude called Link.
Right, and Link is the track that closes outside one of the main Bananarama album.
Tucking an alternate version onto the 12-inch single unannounced, I mean, that is exactly the kind of Easter egg that rewarded hardcore listeners.
And that loyalty clearly paid off.
Yeah.
Bananarama actually re-recorded Robert De Niro's Waiting twice in the early 2000s.
They did, first for the GAY compilation in 2000.
And again for their Exotica album in 2001.
So they clearly viewed this track as a cornerstone of their catalog.
Without a doubt.
And that enduring legacy makes the visual representation of the song all the more interesting to analyze.
The music video.
Yes, the music video. It was directed by Duncan Gibbons, and it is a perfect snapshot of mid-80s literalism.
It really is. Gibbons basically took the title, looked at Robert De Niro's filmography, and just built a miniature cinematic narrative around classic mobster tropes.
It's so literal.
So picture this for you listening if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
You have the band walking down these dark, dimly lit city streets.
Very moody lighting.
Very moody. And they're being shadowed by men in trench coats and fedoras.
Real mafia movie stuff.
Right, and the tension ramps up during the bridge. They show Sarah Dallin running down the street, looking over her shoulder in panic.
It feels like a thriller.
It does.
Yeah.
But it's a complete head fake.
A total misdirection.
Because the climax of the video occurs when the women are back in their apartment. The doorbell rings. Woodward nervously creeps up and opens it, and a menacing stalker is standing right there.
And he's holding a classic mafia-style violin case.
Right, the ultimate trope.
What's fascinating here is how the director completely punctures the suspense.
So funny.
The violin case falls open, and instead of a Tommy gun, it reveals 3 pizzas and a delivery sign.
A pizza delivery sign just taped to the inside.
Exactly. The tension evaporates into this lighthearted comedic resolution where everyone just sits around eating pizza.
They're all laughing.
Yeah, it's an incredibly breezy, sunny interpretation that matches the upbeat synth-pop production perfectly.
But does that literal comedic mobster narrative actually make sense if we consider the darker lyrical themes the band claimed later?
That is the big question.
Or was the director just completely out of the loop? Because here's where it gets really interesting.
This is the core of the mystery.
Right. If you look beneath that upbeat production, beneath the pink vinyl and the pizza delivery video, the actual creators of the song harbor 2 intensely conflicting realities about what those lyrics mean.
This is exactly where the artifact transforms from standard pop trivia into a deep psychological mystery.
Yes.
How do the people who wrote the words perceive the art they created?
Let's examine the first perspective. So jump forward to 2017.
33 years after the song came out.
Right. Bananarama gave a reunion interview to The Guardian. And while they were discussing their legacy, Siobhan Fahey stated, and I quote, "The thing I'm proudest of is that we made quirky pop. The lyrics were much darker than you'd imagine."
Okay, darker than you'd imagine.
And then she explicitly claimed that Robert De Niro's Waiting is actually about date rape.
Which is a staggering claim for a song that most people think is just a fun 80s bop.
It really is. And Karen Woodward immediately backed her up in the same interview. She literally told the fans, "You'll listen to it with new ears now."
It's a complete recontextualization of everything we just talked about.
Completely.
Suddenly, that image of Dallin running through the dark streets in the music video, even with the comedic pizza ending, feels incredibly unsettling.
It changes the entire tone.
And remember that Billboard ranking we mentioned earlier, where they called the song subversive?
Yes.
Well, if we accept Fahey and Woodward's 2017 claim, calling it subversive is a massive understatement.
It means they smuggled a deeply traumatic commentary on sexual assault right onto daytime radio.
And on to Top of the Pops.
Yeah, wrapped in this bouncy, infectious synth melody.
But wait, because we have to look at the complete picture. The narrative doesn't stop with that Guardian interview.
No, it doesn't. And this is where the contradiction comes in. 2 years later, in 2019, Sarah Dallin gave her own interview to The Telegraph.
And she had a very different take.
She unequivocally rejected that dark interpretation. When asked about it, she insisted the song was her words just about hero worship.
Hero worship, that's a huge pivot.
Her exact quote was, "It wasn't about rape. I don't know where that came from. It's absolute rubbish."
Calling your own co-writer's interpretation absolute rubbish is a profound denial.
It completely shatters the idea of a unified creative vision.
It really does.
And Dallin had even mentioned in earlier interviews that her initial goal for the track was simply to capture the vibe of Grace Jones's Pull Up to the Bumper.
Which is interesting in itself.
Right. She admitted it didn't quite work out that way sonically, but her reality remains that they were writing an innocent song about having a crush on a movie star.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces us to analyze the mechanics of a collaborative writing room.
Think about it. You have 3 band members and 2 producers in a room in 1983 or 1984.
How does a single writing session accommodate such wildly different realities?
Did one person write the hook with an innocent celebrity crush in mind, while another wrote a verse channeling something much darker, and they simply never communicated the intent?
That's the part that is so difficult to wrap your head around. It's not a subtle disagreement over the tone of a chord progression.
Not at all.
One half of the writing team believes they authored a heavy, serious commentary on sexual assault,
And the other half believes they authored a lighthearted ode to a celebrity actor.
to the point of outright dismissing the darker claim in the press.
It's fascinating.
It brings up the concept of the death of the author, that literary idea that once a piece of art is created, the creator's intentions are secondary to the audience's interpretation.
Right, the audience decides what it means.
But here, the authors themselves are experiencing a localized version of that phenomenon. Memory, personal trauma, and just the sheer passage of time have completely warped the shared history of this one song.
And we have to consider how public relations and shifting cultural landscapes play a role too.
Absolutely.
Like in 2017, revealing a subversive feminist underpinning to an 80s pop hit adds critical weight to their legacy.
It fits perfectly into the cultural conversations happening in 2017.
Exactly. But then in 2019, perhaps the desire was to protect the innocent nostalgia of the era, to just let a pop song be a pop song.
Right. And you brought up Dallin wanting the vibe of Grace Jones's Pull Up to the Bumper.
Yeah, that detail always sticks with me.
Adds a whole other layer of weirdness to this.
ISO.
Because Pull Up to the Bumper is legendary for its intense double entendres and its gritty, club-focused edge.
Very true.
If Dallin wanted that specific energy, but claims the lyrical result of her own song was purely innocent hero worship, there is a massive disconnect between intention and execution, even within her own personal memory of the event.
That is a great point.
It suggests a creative environment where ideas were just thrown into the mix without a singular guiding manifesto.
The result is essentially a Rorschach test of a pop song.
Both realities exist simultaneously because human memory is fallible, especially when parsing out who contributed what to a pop song over 30 years ago.
Yeah, we can't definitively point to one version of history as the objective truth because the primary sources themselves are at war over it.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? We started out looking at a highly successful 1984 synth pop single.
A huge hit.
We examined the ingenious physical marketing, the pink, green, and blue vinyl that gamified fan identity.
We analyzed a music video that played on literal mafia tropes for comedic effect.
But beneath all that 80s gloss, we found a heavily contested legacy. It is a song that functions simultaneously as a harmless celebrity crush anthem and a dark narrative about assault.
Depending entirely on which of its creators happens to be holding the microphone on any given day.
It really strips away the illusion that the pop machine operates with perfect clarity.
The surface-level gloss often hides a deeply fractured creative process.
It really does. So the next time you are tapping your foot to a breezy, nostalgic track from that era, keep Bananarama in mind.
Look a little closer.
Exactly. Remember that the pristine synthesizer melodies and the perfectly curated marketing campaigns might be masking a profound disagreement about what the music actually stands for.
It is a perfect reminder to look closer at the things we think we understand.
Beautifully said.
And it leaves us with an important question, something for you to consider long after we wrap up today.
I love this part.
We are conditioned to believe that the artist has the final, definitive word on their work. But if the original creators are alive and they publicly and vehemently contradict each other about the fundamental meaning of their art, who actually owns the truth of that song once it exists in the world? Is it the writers who can't agree? Or does the truth ultimately belong to you, the audience, deciding what it means when you hear it?